Welcome to Tales from Flat Space, a podcast of science fiction and fantasy by yours truly, Gina A. Pond. Just know that the stories in this podcast may contain content that could be disturbing to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. This is Colony, Part 1, New York Colony, Chapter 8, Marcus. After waiting in the long line through identity control, I finally emerged into the terminal of New York Colony's spaceport. I half expected some crazy woman to jump out at me from the crowd, but all I saw was a well-dressed thin man holding a tablet with my name and the logo for Yaratech on it. I walked up to him and said, "I'm Marcus Roner." The man smiled at me, then looked me up and down. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Roner. I'm Joseph, Miss Yeremeyev's personal assistant. She would have come herself, but she recently acquired a new business venture and has been rather busy." "Oh, not a problem. Does she need any help?" Joseph snorted. "She needs lots of help, but probably not from you." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Never mind, Mr. Renner. Miss Yeremeyev asked me to bring you to her office, if you don't mind. Roy's gone to get your luggage. I'll drop you off and we'll bring your luggage to the hotel." Okay. Lead on," I said. Joseph turned and led me to the parking lot, where a long air limo was waiting. The driver held the door open for us, and we got in. Joseph didn't seem to be inclined to talk. He pulled out his tablet as soon as he sat down and started reading something. I looked out the window while we traveled through the city. The area near the spaceport was generally all right, but every now and again I could see broken buildings on the other side of the city. When we went over the new Brooklyn Bridge into the capital proper, the damage was devastating. "Jesus," I said, as I stared at the crater where the government buildings and uptown shopping district used to be. "Is it safe to travel near that?" "What?" said Joseph, looking up. "Oh, yes. Don't believe everything you hear on Unity News. The terrorists actually used a huge amount of conventional explosives with just enough radioactive material to set off the sensors. Some assholes calling themselves the White Liberation Front claim responsibility for setting it off, but I doubt it was some homegrown racist fucks who funded it. Way too much bang for the convenience of blowing up the Capitol building. It's going to be a pain in the ass for the colony to clean up once they reestablish the colony government. Most of the government, including the executives and the House, were at ground zero. We have a temporary fleet military governor until they get around to having elections again. If we can have actual elections. We're not heading to that side of the city anyway." "Do you know if the Genovian Union building got hit?" "No, of course not. It's in one of the outer boroughs, closer to the suburbs. It might have had some windows blown out, but they'll be replaced by now. You'll have to have Roy drive you over there, though, since the trams aren't running to that end of the city right now." "Miss Yeremeyev won't mind?" Joseph shook his head. "Roy won't mind the extra work, since Anna's been spending most of her days at the business. She'll let you know what she wants, don't worry." The man seemed to have a perpetual frown, and it made me wonder. "Did I do something to offend you, Joseph?" I asked. He gave a short laugh. "No, Mr. Roner. I hate everyone equally until I get to know them, including my employer. But she pays me well, so I warmed up to her pretty quickly." Mercenary, I thought. "What is she like?" Joseph narrowed his eyes. "I thought you knew her." I'm just a friend of her uncle's, really." "Oh, I see. To be honest, she's a bit batshit and can be scary. But she knows how to fight, and she likes to party pretty hard. If she likes you, she'll protect you. Let's just say that whatever work you're going to be doing with her won't be boring. One thing, though, she'll whine about things when she doesn't get her way. If you tell her no enough times, she'll respect it." So I've been told. About the saying no part, anyway." Joseph nodded. "I do know you're all survey folks working in Unity and that she has enhancements. But I only know that because my previous employer knew. Oh, I see, I said. I'm just a computer nerd. I fix things. I shrugged. Right, he said. And I'm the president of Unity. Whatever. I shrugged. That's all he really needed to know about me. So, why did you decide to work for Ms. Yermayoff? She was recommended by said previous employer, and our goals are the same. Oh? Now it was Joseph's turn to smile and stay quiet. He folded his arms and looked out the window. Right, I said. We spent the rest of this ride in silence. The building we pulled up to looked like it dated from the founding of the colony. It was being refurbished, and there was scaffolding all around it, and workers going in and out with tools and materials. Roy came around the air limo and opened the door. Well, here's your stop, Mr. Roner. Just go in through the front. Ask for Carlos, and he'll bring you to the office. Tell Anna she'll need to arrange her own dinner tonight. I have a date. Joseph looked at me with impatience. Well, go on then. Flustered, I said, yeah, okay. Then grabbed my briefcase and got out. Roy closed the door, got back into the air limo, and drove off. I wasn't sure if I should be pissed at Joseph or not. I sighed, turned, and looked at the edifice that was being repaired. There wasn't really a sign out front. Some of the workers working on the facade looked at me for a moment, then went back to what they were doing. It seemed that no one was taking any interest in me, which I was grateful for. I took a breath, then made my way through the front door, dodging people, tools, and paint cans. The lobby looked like it had once been a fancy theater and was getting a much nicer paint job than it previously had. I looked around and found a short, balding man near the inner door who seemed to be answering a contractor's question. I walked over and waited while he finished talking, then said, Excuse me, I'm looking for Carlos? That's me. What can I do for you? I'm here to see Ms. Yermayoff. Joseph, her assistant, said I should ask you to take me to her. Carlos rolled his eyes. That lazy fucker. He shook his head. Come on, she's in her office. He walked through the inner doors into what looked like an amphitheater with rows of seats and theater boxes. In the middle was a large cage with what looked like a padded floor. There were workers in the rafters shouting back and forth to each other as they adjusted the lights. What happens here? I asked Carlos. This is Fight Club. Fighters from all over the colony come here to try and kick each other's ass for a good deal of money. Well, a good deal of money now that Ms. Yermayoff took over. I'm kind of glad her bodyguards fight took out the trash, you know? At least now I get a salary and I don't have to worry about anyone getting killed. Killed? The man nodded. Yeah, the previous owner was a real asshole. Anyway, here we are. We reached the other side of the amphitheater, and Carlos knocked on the door labeled Office, Private. Hey, boss. Someone here's to see you. Looks like someone official. I followed Carlos into the office. A dark-haired woman looked up from the desk. A tall blonde woman in a Musashi uniform stood up as Carlos came in. Everything about her just screamed warrior. I spent time training on Musashi in my first year as a librarian, but I'd never seen this woman. Something about her looked very familiar, though. I stayed in the doorway waiting to be invited in. Marcus, it's so good to see you. It's okay, Jenny. He's that friend of Uncle Sonny's I told you about. Come in, she said, waving me into the office. Thanks, Carlos. How are things going with the repairs? Carlos frowned. The painters are doing a half-assed job in the training areas, trying to tell me that they can't possibly finish in 2 weeks. The woman sighed. You think they might be a cause business? Possibly. What a pain in the ass. Right. I'll be down in 20 minutes to see if I can encourage them to do better. Carlos grinned. I'll let them know, he said as he walked out. Close the door, would you, Marcus? Take a seat. I did as she asked. She flashed me a smile that seemed to shine like the sun. Well, aren't you a tasty little snack? Jenny rolled her eyes. Really? She said. I blinked, then took the seat opposite Jenny, ignoring the comment from Anna. Uncle John didn't tell me you owned a fight club, I said. Well, I just acquired it a couple of weeks ago, thanks to Jenny here, and instead of opening up right away, I decided to remodel. The previous owner didn't really give a shit about the fighters and their facilities, so I'm bringing it up to Unity Sport Association code. It also doesn't hurt that I'll be able to get a shit ton of information from this place. She dragged a hand through her hair, then pressed the palm lock on the desk and counted to 5 on her fingers. The privacy tech got installed yesterday, thankfully, so I take it you're here to help us figure out where Paulo's getting his data, huh? I nodded. And to track the source. I'll be working out of the Genovian Union building. You'll be staying with us, though, she said. It was an order, not a question. Come again? We just moved into the penthouse suite at the Capitol Four Seasons, so there's plenty of room. Joseph's probably not going to be in much anyway, so it won't be too noisy. She turned to Jenny. Any bets that Joseph runs off with the boarding house owner after he's done with whatever he's doing here? Honestly, Anna, I don't really want to speculate about Joseph's love life, Jenny said. What is it with Joseph anyway? I asked. He didn't seem to like me, and he was kind of rude. Anna laughed. Joseph is a pissy queen, she said, as if that's all the explanation that was needed. Then she asked, do I call you Marcus or Mark? Strangely, Jenny twitched at the name Mark. Odd. I wonder why, I thought. Marcus. Then I remembered. Oh, right. Joseph said he's going to be out tonight. He said to tell you you're on your own for dinner. Oh, then let's go somewhere nice. I can make a reservation. Anna was interrupted by the faint sounds of men yelling and staccato popping sounds. Anna slammed her hand on the palm lock, and Jenny was out the door like a shot. Anna followed Jenny, and I came up behind. We ran through the amphitheater and into the lobby to see the scaffolding in front of the building leaning askew. Jenny joined the others who were holding ladders while workers carefully descended. Anna and I stayed out of the way as Jenny and Carlos worked with the others. Anna sighed. Well, it looks like Paulo didn't take kindly to Jenny cutting off his nephew's hand. Or Hector's just mad that I won this place out from under him. Or both. What? The night Jenny won this place for me, we had to deal with Hector Kozalezi. He had tried to assassinate me that morning. Not a very good assassin, since Jenny and I caught him and sent him packing off planet. But it still counts. Anyway, that night it had come to our attention that Hector was exploiting his fighters, and one female fighter in particular, and Jenny really doesn't like people who exploit others in any way. He tried to pull a gun on us, and she cut off his hand. It was a clean cut, so they were able to reattach it fine. Honestly, no harm done. She hummed, considering. Although, I suppose I went a little overboard by telling Jenny to cut off his clothes, so he had to wait for the ambulance in his underwear. I didn't know whether to laugh or be horrified, especially as Anna told the whole story as if she was talking about the weather. Yeah, the clothes thing might have been overkill, I said. Sorry to make your job a bit harder, she said. I shrugged. Kozalezi doesn't know who I am. All I'm here to do is rifle through the company computers. She laughed. A pleasant, but dangerous-sounding laugh. Right, and I'm here to start a fight club. Peering through the main door, she said, Well, I guess I have to go and see how much I'm going to have to deal with the insurance company. She sighed and went outside. As I watched the woman walk away, I realized that I hadn't really believed John when he said she was a sociopath. Now I was starting to wonder if I'd survive working with her. Chapter 9. Joseph. The taxi let me out in front of one of the suburban mansions about 2 hours outside of the capital. I went up to the gate and put my palm on the pad on the gate post. The gate opened and the security guard pulled up in an air cart. I climbed in and the guard started down the driveway as the gate closed behind us. The grounds were quite beautiful, forested with native ferns and turquoise evergreens. From what I understood, Mr. Olka preferred it that way because it gave him the illusion of privacy. I didn't think it was all that much of an illusion, but one didn't question Mr. Olka. The guard stopped at the front door of the mansion, which had already been opened by Lewis, Olka's butler and personal assistant. He was a handsome man, and if I didn't know that he had an exclusive contract with Mr. Olka already, I would have gone for him. I sighed. "Good afternoon, Lewis," I said. "Welcome, Joseph," he said. "Mr. Olka is waiting for you in the lounge." His tone suggested that I wasn't really welcome, but then Lewis always sounded that way. I never took it personally. The man turned and walked into the house, and I followed. We stopped in front of a set of double doors towards the back of the house. Lewis opened the doors and motioned me to go inside. The lounge had classical earth furnishings. Old wood, velvet, and dark green painted walls. Classy, but comfortable, which really defined Olka's style. As much as I feared the man, I really had to admire his taste. "Come in, Joseph," said a voice from the couch. "Don't just stand there in the doorway." "Yes, sir," I said. Made my way to one of the armchairs across from where Olka was sitting on a couch with one of his newest pets. It was an old man this time. He had nothing on but a leather collar and a leash. The man was curled up on the couch with his head in Olka's lap. Olka was petting his white hair, and I could see fresh welts on the man's back. I breathed in and had to admit to myself that I was a little jealous. I sat down and tried not to stare. He pushed the man gently off his lap and took off the leash. "Go on upstairs, pet. I shouldn't be too long. Take a nap if you like." The man nodded, rolled carefully off the couch, kissed Olka's feet, then stood and left the room. He turned back to me and said, "So, how's it going with my little survey pet?" I frowned. "She's a pain in the ass," I said. "I told you she would be, but so are you." He picked up the glass next to him on the table and took a sip from it. "Have you found out which Kozolezi are the slavers yet?" "Why does it matter who the slaver is if the whole damn family is shady?" I asked. "Let's just kill them all and be done with it." Olka frowned, and I shuddered. "It matters, Joseph, because if you take out the entire Kozolezi family, we would lose their connections to all of their other organizations involved. We won't find them again. Never mind the fact that there would be a power vacuum on New York Colony, which would result in a civil war." He got up, threw the glass to the sideboard, and poured himself a drink. "Besides, there are other factors in play, and I want to know who it is. Someone's manipulating Unity like a video game. I'm pretty sure my little survey pet has a similar mission, since I know they like to think they are the only ones who should manipulate humanity. But it's not just Survey who's in play here." "Oh," I said, a bit awkwardly, looking at my feet. Olka handed me a glass of whiskey. I sighed. He always remembers, I thought. Then I felt his hand on my chin. He gripped my chin and forced me to look up at him. "I know you want to avenge Maurice, and you will get satisfaction, but you need to be patient, my pet." His eyes pierced me to my soul, and I trembled in his hands. Olka knew just how to push all my buttons, and this was the biggest one. He loosened his grip, then caressed my cheek before he took his hand away. When he turned to sit with his own drink, I took a long swallow of the whiskey. "So, Joseph, anything else to report?" "Anna has a Musashi bodyguard now. She's tall, blonde, and looks very familiar to me. She knows how to use her blade well. She's the one that won the fight club for Anna and cut Hector's hand off. I think Anna had been looking for her, and they seem to know each other. There's also a new Sun Tzu agent who's just arrived named Marcus Roner, supposedly some kind of computer geek. They have him listed as a troubleshooter for the Genovian Union Security Division. That's all I know about either of them for now." Olka looked thoughtful for a few moments. "What's the guard's name?" "Jenny." He raised his eyebrows. "Tall, blonde, and a Musashi warrior. I wonder." I didn't ask what he wanted to know. I just waited. Olka pulled out a tablet, tapped on it a bit, then handed it to me. Is that her? There was no sound, but I recognized the video of the woman who carved up the government of that lost colony. I watched as she slaughtered the men in the room, then finally she turned towards the camera. Holy shit, yes! I handed him back the tablet, even more unsettled than before. Keep your eye on her. She might have the same desire as you do, as she used to be Paolo Kozolezzi's son. But it's interesting that she's now a Musashi officer. She might just lead you to what you need. I nodded. Now, why don't we dispense with business for a while? I'm sure you have some desires that need to be met. Or at least, your desires will meet my needs, he said with a grin. My body shivered in anticipation. Olko came over to stand next to my chair. Stand, he ordered, putting down the whiskey glass. I obeyed. He carefully unbuttoned my shirt, then used it to pin my hands behind my back. You've been a good boy, he whispered in my ear. Let's go for a walk. As he shoved me out of the lounge, thoughts of the outside world got pushed aside. I returned to the penthouse early the next morning, relaxed and pleasantly sore. I quietly palmed the door open, only to have a sword appear at my throat. I froze. What the fuck? I whispered. The sword left my throat and Jenny appeared. I hope you had a good date, she said, moving aside to let me in. She shut and locked the door behind me. Yes, I did, I said, rubbing my throat absently. What the hell was that about? We had a drive-by at the club after you left. No one was hurt, thankfully, but the contractors are pretty freaked out. We were thinking it's Cause's answer to cutting off Hector's hand the other day. Fuck, I said. There really wasn't anything else to say to that. Why are you up so early? She shrugged. I'm always up early. I was doing my morning meditation. Oh. I watched her carefully as she sat back down on a cushion on the floor opposite the door. I was tempted to just go to my room, but I wasn't sleepy and I'd already showered at Oka's. I sat on the couch and stared at her for a moment. She stared back. Why are you here? I asked. Why are you? She countered. I asked first. I have family here. I'm trying to find out what happened to them after the blast. That was over 1.5 years ago. She frowned. I know. What took so long? She gestured to her uniform. I was busy. I sighed. Busy toppling governments, eh? Jenny's face stilled. She could have been a statue sitting on the cushion. What do you know? She asked quietly. The video of you is all over Unity. You're the hero of New Harmony. How could I not recognize you? I'm not a hero, she said defiantly. I shrugged. I'm just telling you how you're being portrayed. I'm surprised that other people haven't recognized you. Jenny laughed. They have. I roll my eyes and tell them I get that all the time. A lot of people, especially when drunk, will believe me. So when I was working as a bouncer, it was easy. And in this, people see the uniform before they see my face. She eyed me warily. So? You know, I work for a man named Olka. Like Paolo, he runs a business. She nodded. The new harmonist caused him a lot of trouble on Unity Hub, and he wasn't all that sad when that chaplain got rid of all those assholes. There were a lot of his people who got sold into slavery by those fuckers who never came back, and I was sent here to track them down. She stared at me, unblinking. Now that I knew who she was, her gaze was unnerving. In some ways, it reminded me of Olka and the way he seemed to know my deepest desires. Except with Jenny, it was as if my soul was laid bare before her. She knew that this wasn't just a mission for me. It was personal. She might be more dangerous than Olka or Anna, I thought. I see, she said, looking thoughtful. It looked as if she was going to say something, but then one of the other bedroom doors opened. Marcus stepped out, dressed in a dark blue business suit and holding a briefcase. He checked his wristcom, then finally looked up. "Oh, hi, did I wake you two?" he asked. Jenny shook her head. "I was meditating." "I just got in," I said. Marcus raised his eyebrows. "Didn't stay for breakfast with him?" he asked, grinning. He had to work." "Well, you look more relaxed than yesterday. Did Jenny tell you about the shooting?" I nodded. "Do you need Roy to drive you to the Genovian Union building?" I asked. "Oh, yes, that would be great," he said. "I was just going to take a cab since you weren't here to ask last night." I tapped my wristcom. "He'll be outside in a couple of minutes. Tell him I said to give you his comm code so that you can just call him in the morning." I gestured towards Anna's room. "Miss Thing doesn't get up until much later, so you no need to worry about that." "Thanks. See you both later," he said and left the suite. I watched him leave, then heard a rustling next to me. Jenny had moved to stand next to me. My body instinctively wanted to kneel, but I resisted the urge. "You know who I was, don't you? From Olka?" she asked. I nodded. "I'll expect you to keep it to yourself." Her eyes didn't leave mine, and the room seemed to get colder. "All right. Yes, I will. Of course," I said, flustered. Her eyes seemed to dig deeper. "Who did they take from you?" "My lover. I think they found him out on Unity Hub because he had decided not to have transition surgery. He disappeared, and Olka found out that the new harmonist had taken him off station. He was pretty, with blonde hair like yours. Somehow Olka tracked him here, so I came here to find him. His body washed up on the shore 2 weeks later, with a collar around his neck. Unlike me, Maurice didn't do collared play, so I knew he didn't take it willingly. The case was shoved under the rug by the colonial police." I looked at her, seeing her, but something else, shocked that I was telling her as much as I was. Her face was stony and cold. When she finally spoke, there was something to her voice that scared me much more than Olka. "When you get proof, I'll help you get rid of them." She turned and went back to her cushion and closed her eyes. I blinked then, remembering to breathe. I left her to her meditation and went to my room, grateful to be out of her way. Chapter 10. Lulu. I surveyed my new little kingdom with pride. The boxes were filled with New York Colony's elite. The rest of the amphitheater was filled with New Yorkers waiting in anticipation to see how the new management had changed things at Fight Club. It'd been a month since the shooting, and it seemed that the cause thought they'd made their point. Maybe. Or maybe they have something else up their sleeves, I thought. The silence from the cause was interesting, but I wasn't worrying about that tonight. All the seats in my new business were filled, and the money was rolling in. I've been watching the fighters train all week, both old and new, so I knew that this was going to be a spectacular show. Carlos had hired a new MC named Brittany, a stunning, curly-haired redhead who I'd been unsure of, until Carlos showed me her Unity Sports Association referee credentials. I had Marcus look her up, and it turned out that she had been working fight rings for 10 years, and was a fighter herself before that. Seeing her work with the other fighters, I knew Carlos had found me a gem. I was even thinking of making them co-managers and letting them run the place when I wasn't dirtside. After her interview, I had given her some extra credits and told her to get some sexy outfits for the ring that she could work in. She cracked a huge smile and ran off to the mall. Seeing what the woman had on tonight, I was not disappointed. I admired her outfit as she checked the ring. Knee-high, short-heeled, black boots, tight black pants that looked like leather but moved more like leggings, and a tight black sparkling tank top that showed off her muscular tattooed arms. She had pinned her hair up in a tight bun. Practical, yet sexy. I wholeheartedly approved. It made me want to do things to her. Work now, play later, I reminded myself. I sighed and went back to watching the crowd. Hector had been banned from the club, which I'm sure pissed him off, but I could see other cause loyalists in their boxes covertly watching me. The other elite families had shown up to watch, for the first time since the Kozolezis had taken over. All the usual suspects sponsored a fighter this time, though most of them grumbled at the contracts. During negotiations, I had convinced them that doing right by their fighters was in their best interest. The fighters were very happy at the new contracts, unsurprisingly. I didn't think it hurt that Jenny was standing in the corner near my desk during the contract negotiations. Word had gotten around about what had happened to the president of Pain and Hector, and anyone who came to sponsor a fighter nearly shit themselves if she frowned at them. I looked at the Musashi warrior standing at the door of the box and smiled. Quite useful, my little warrior, I thought, but I doubt they'll let her stay in the field for long. Everyone knew the admiral was at her dance ceremony and had been looking for a new apprentice for several years now. He'd be stupid not to take her on. Jenny raised her eyebrows at me as if to ask, "What?" I shook on my head and turned back to the crowd. I looked at my wristcom. 15 minutes. The doorbell of the box rang and Jenny opened the door. I heard her talking to someone, then she said, "Anna, Joseph's here and he brought some guy named Olka?" My body shivered delightfully. What's he doing here, I thought. Doesn't matter, he's here, said another part of my brain, the part that didn't know what was good for it. Outwardly calm, I said, "Let him in, Jenny. He's a friend." The other woman nodded, opening the door, and Joseph and Olka walked in. I gave Olka a genuine smile as he kissed my forehead. "What a pleasant surprise, Daddy. What brings you to my humble establishment?" He smiled. "Well, I couldn't resist seeing what my little survey pet's been up to while I'm here. I'm rather impressed with what you've done with the place." "Wait till you see the fights," I purred. The man's magnetism was hard to resist, and he was the only person that I happily submitted to. I realized then that I never thanked Marcia for giving me the mission to find out more about him. I resisted the urge to kneel right there, since I did have to look like I was in charge right now. Later, I promised myself as I leaned into his touch. "I'm looking forward to it," he said. "It's been a while since I've seen some good fighting, especially since I had to pull most of my operation from Unity Hub. I should probably punish you for that sometime, but then again, you and your ambassador did me a giant favor." He leaned in closer and gripped my chin. "I will punish you for being away for so long, though," he whispered, then kissed me, biting my lip before he pulled away. He let go of my chin and sat down. I smiled wider, praying that my legs would keep me upright long enough to start the fight. I moved to the edge of the box, holding on to the rail. Brittany and Carlos gave the thumbs up, and I picked up the microphone in the box. "Welcome, everyone, to the new and improved Fight Club. If you don't know me, I'm Anna Yeremayoff, your host. We have Carlos in the pit, and here's Brittany, our new MC. We have a big announcement for tonight. As the newest championship qualifying venue with Unity Sports, the winner at the end of the season will go on to the Galactic Fighting Championship on Yantai Colony. Besides having the glory of being champion of New York Colony, of course. So place your bets, folks." The crowd roared as I turned off the mic. I motioned to Brittany, who introduced the first of the night's fights. I went to the snack table and grabbed a bucket of popcorn, offering it to Olka first before I sat down. He took some as he kept his eyes on the fights. After a while, I looked towards the back of the box. Joseph was sitting in the last row of seats, looking at us with longing. "Ah, I see. So that's how it is with him. Definitely no former about his employment, then," I thought. I looked at Jenny, who was eyeing Olka warily. I sighed and stood. "If you'll excuse me a moment, Daddy," I asked. Olka looked at me, gave my ass a pat, then nodded. Jenny was a statue as I walked up the short stairs of the box. "Right," I said quietly. "His name is Mac Olka. He's a boss that worked on Unity Hub, and he was instrumental in helping Marcia take down the new Harmonists. He's a major force in Unity, and, well, sexually he's firmly in the same kinky direction I am. We have a long-term contractual arrangement. Let's just say that He and I are a lot alike, except I work for Survey and he runs his own business. She nodded. Out of curiosity, why do you call him Daddy? She asked. Because I'm too much of a top to call him Master, I laughed. Besides, he likes it. Why is he on New York Colony? I looked back at the man, who I could see was drawing looks from the other elite. I'm not sure. Jenny looked at Joseph, then said quietly, I think they're looking for slavers. Joseph told me the other day that his mission was to find some of Olka's people who disappeared from Unity Hub. They were presumed sold by these slavers. It's personal for Joseph. She paused. Also, Olka knows who I am. You're just telling me this now? I asked, annoyed. It didn't come up before. Besides, I thought you already knew that he knew. No, I didn't. Him knowing who you are isn't a big deal, I suppose. You're not after him, nor he you, and he's big. You're not after him, nor he you, and he's as big on consent as I am. Joseph and Olka think it's the cause. Jenny nodded. Right, interesting. I might have to talk with Joseph later. Don't scare him too badly, Anna. He didn't tell Olka. Olka already knew. I think he's scared enough of me. As well he should be, I said. Jenny got a confused look on her face. I'm not that scary, am I? I laughed loudly, making Joseph jump and look towards us. Jenny, you're a tall, strong woman. You single-handedly destroyed a planetary government. You dress like a samurai complete with sword, and you rarely laugh or smile. You took down the president of Pain without breaking a sweat, and cut off Hector's hand in the parking lot. Plus, you have the presence of personality. Of course you're scary. Oh, she said, frowning, like that hadn't occurred to her before. Don't worry, you have friends that aren't scared of you, like me. I gave her my best dazzle smile, and she rolled her eyes, but laughed. Well, I turned to Joseph. I got her to laugh a bit. Really? Is the sky green? Are pigs flying? Joseph teased. Olka turned to us and gave one of his own smiles. He motioned me to come back down to him. I nodded and turned back to Jenny. Olka is dangerous, especially if crossed, so he's an ally and a good one, but don't piss him off. Jenny nodded. Right. Gotta go, I said, walking down the stairs, grabbing a couple of drinks from the snack table, and offering one to Olka. He took it, taking a long drink, as I sat next to him. I'm impressed with your fighters so far. Intense, but without the bloodbath. A marked improvement. He put his hand on my knee and squeezed hard, which sent shivers up my spine. Does your bodyguard approve of me? Does she need to? I asked. No, but I tend to be respectful of warriors of her caliber. Then yes, she approves, and she approves of Joseph's mission too. Olka raised an eyebrow. She's more dangerous than I thought. You think she's dangerous? I said, surprised. I'm not naive enough to think that I'm the only dangerous person in the galaxy, my pet. She will be a formidable admiral when the old admiral finally gets around to it. I chuckled. I had the same thought. I'm still surprised you keep up with survey politics. Your nation is a rival of sorts. I keep track of my rivals and those of my people who have defected. The saving grace for Survey is that if one of my people runs to you, it's for a reason, and I know that Survey will take care of them. It helps me keep my organization running by my rules. Because you eliminate the sources that force your people into Survey in the first place. Olka just smiled, and his silver eyes twinkled. I tried to control my breathing. I would like to call in a favor, however, he said, since I think Survey owes me a large one. I can't officially promise anything, but I know you'll need to talk to your uncle, but I want you to help Joseph with his mission. I need to know where my people are. I know about the ones that have been killed, including Joseph's lover, but there are still too many missing. I need data and names, Pet. The elites here generally don't talk to me. I'm not here enough to get into the right circles. There are a few who are regulars at my establishments on Unity Hub, but no one's really traveling to Hub these days. Not like they used to. I'll send word to my uncles, but I think that's a project they can help with, I said. His hand squeezed harder, making my breath catch. Excellent. I'll give you an address for data drops. Suddenly, he took his hand off my knee. I was disappointed until he said quietly, still watching the fights below, "Come to my house for the weekend? You still need punishment. Joseph has the address." "Yes, Daddy," I said. He handed me the popcorn bucket, stood in front of me with his back to the crowd, then grabbed my hair in his fist, pulled my head back, and kissed me hard. I surrendered to him, melting into my chair until he finally pulled away with a playful bite of my lip. "Still perfection," he said. He released my hair and left the booth, beckoning to Joseph to go with him. It took a few minutes for me to return to myself as the fight continued below. Chapter 11. Marcus. Roy pulled up at the Genovian Financial Building in the air limo at the end of the workday. He opened the door as I climbed in. "Good evening, Mr. Roner. How are you today?" he asked, after he closed my door and got into the driver's seat. "Okay, Roy. Is your wife feeling better?" "Yes, sir. She was up and around yesterday. Spring colds are pretty nasty here." "So I hear. One's been going around the building. I've mostly been stuck in the server room all day, so hopefully I'll miss it." "I would hope so," he said with a chuckle. In the month and a half that I'd been here, I'd gotten to know Roy fairly well. I knew that he had been working for Yaratech and the Yeremayev family for years, and that when the Yeramayevs weren't on planet, he was paid a very generous salary. That meant he didn't have to take on any other work unless he wanted to. I learned that he had a wife and family with several children and grandchildren, none of which, thankfully, were killed in the bombing. Not that Roy didn't have opinions about it. When I asked him one morning about the bombing, he said, "Those racist motherfuckers have been around for decades. This is the first time they've done anything like this. They were supposed to be this fringe group, right? And out of nowhere, 10 years ago, they've suddenly got lots of credits, and they're putting their asshole leaders in office and then bombing the city. I mean, I thought we left all that white supremacy shit on Earth, you know? Civil rights laws and all that. Shit, I'm a fucking black man, and I've been scared lately, you know?" "Did you hear what happened on Unity Hub 2 years ago?" I asked. Roy snorted. "Oh, hell yeah. That woman's a goddamn hero no matter what Unity News says about her. Not that Unity News hasn't been nothing but right-wing bullshit for a long time now. I've been watching Geneva Broadcasting these days because of that. GBC actually reported the evidence she sent to the press." He sighed. "It's always the black woman taking out the racist trash, and she did it good. Brought the racist fuckers down here a peg or two. Brought the racist fuckers here down a peg or 10, too. Kinda wish the Kozolezi would back off, though. They've gotten worse. Kozolezi should not be running for governor. I certainly won't vote for that asshole. I know they said his kid was the one to break the banks a few years back, but considering the rumors I heard about that family, I can't blame his kid for leaving. I hope he went on to something better." "Yes, I hope so too," I said, finding how much Roy knew about the situation I was investigating very interesting. This afternoon, I was staring out the window going over the data I'd found in my head. I knew now that what Roy had confirmed for me was only the tip of the iceberg. Having been out to cafes and restaurants on my lunch breaks, I've heard plenty of similar opinions. The citizens of the capital, at least, were very much against the current order of things. They didn't have much faith that the colony government wouldn't be corrupt again when it was put back in place, nor did they have any faith in the Unity Senate. From what I'd seen in the last month and a half being here, I agreed. "You're quiet today, Mr. Runner," Roy said, looking at me through the rearview mirror. "Sorry, Roy," I said. "Found the problem I was looking for today, and it's bigger than I thought." "Well, you're a smart guy. I'm sure you'll fix it," he said. "Thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm just worried that I won't be able to fix it." Roy narrowed his eyes. Look, I know you, Anna, and the other two are more than what you let on. I don't need to know who you are, why you're here. I mean, I get paid very well to not see anything and keep my mouth shut. But if you're doing something about the Kozolezi family, I got no problem with that. We're New Yorkers. We're used to weird shit going down. We live through it and move on. Don't worry about us. I opened my mouth and shut it. I should have known that Roy would figure Anna and the rest of us out. You don't get that kind of cushy, reliable job he has on New York Colony without being observant of your client's needs. Thanks, Roy, I said. I still worry about you, though. You're a decent human being, Mr. Roner, Roy said with a smile. I smiled back, still wishing he'd just call me Marcus, but after the first few times he refused to do so, I gave up. So are you, Roy, I said, staring out the window of the air limo. Roy was silent for a while, then said, Sir, I think we're being followed. What kind of car? Black, dark windows. This is the third turn I've seen them. Do you want me to lose them? No, act like everything's normal. I tapped my wristcom. I just sent you an address. Go past the hotel and drop me off there. Yes, sir, he said. I pulled out my tablet from my briefcase and typed a message. To Anastasia, from Marcus at Genovian Union Financial. Going out for a nice dinner. Meet you later. That done, I also tapped out the first 3 prime numbers on my wristcom to send the emergency signal to Anna's wristcom. Then I turned the wristcom off and pulled out 3 nanopickets from my briefcase. I felt the nanopickets vibrate as I turned them on with my bots. Roy, are they still behind us? Yes, sir, he said. Okay, once you drop me off, Roy, just go home. I'll make sure they see me leave the car. Do not come to the hotel tomorrow or the next day. Just consider us off planet for the time being, unless we contact you. Roy pulled up to the Zender building. Do you still have your panic button? Yes, sir, I keep it in my pocket. Good, don't be afraid to use it. I got out of the car. Thanks for everything, Roy, I said. Good luck, Mr. Roner. Come visit if you can. I'd love to introduce you to the family. I smiled. Thanks, Roy. I closed the door and patted the car. I turned before the car that was following us could see my face, and casually walked into the jewelry store on the first floor. I didn't turn off the nanopickets in my hand until the door of the store closed behind me. Hello, sir. Can I help you? Said the person at the counter. Yes, I'm here to see Mix Musterman. We're going out for dinner, and I'm running a little late. I see. Please come with me, they said, and led the way behind a curtain to the back of the shop. We walked past an actual watchmaker and jeweler. The watchmaker was still bent over a microscope, but the jeweler looked like they were cleaning up for the night. Fawn, can you close the front, please? The clerk asked. Yeah, sure, Fawn said, and went out through the curtain. The person then motioned me to follow, leading me into an office. They palmed the door closed as I entered, and went behind the desk. I'm Mix Musterman. How many are following you? Not sure. They were in a blacked-out air car. They nodded. Agents? 3 others besides myself. Mission? We're still in play. Right. They went to a closet and pulled out some clothes. Here, change into this. I took off my suit jacket, tie, and shirt, then pulled on a t-shirt, denim jacket, and baseball cap. I opened my briefcase on one of the chairs in the room, pulled out the folding backpack, and put the pickets, tablet, pulse pistol, and data cube in it. I handed my wristcom to Miss Musterman, and they gave me a new one. I put the new one on and zipped up the backpack, leaving the case on the chair. Mix Musterman held out a tablet and said, Hand. I put my hand on it. Thank you, Mr. Summer. The car is downstairs in the garage and programmed. Your wristcom will open the house. Do you need me to contact Uncle John? No, not right now. We'll sort that out ourselves. Understood. Is there anything else, Mr. Summer? No, thank you, I said, hefting the backpack. There's an elevator to the garage at the end of this hall. Good evening, Mr. Summer. Mix Musterman, I said, nodded, and then went to the garage. I didn't see the black car that had been following us when I pulled out of the Zender building. The car left the city and the outer boroughs without incident. The fear didn't catch up with me until I left the boroughs, where the landscape changed from the greenish hybrid trees of the city to the turquoise trees and white soil of the native planet. I drove past fields of hybrid crops, It was almost the start of the rainy season, and the clouds on the horizon were a spectacular sight of reds, golds, and purples. I started to shake as I watched the first moon rise above the horizon and dusk settle in. Thankfully, the car was autonomous. Shit, I gasped out loud. I didn't have to guess who sniffed us out. I assumed it was the Kozolezi family. There was too much information going to Paolo Kozolezi from our unknown source. It was obvious. What was bothering me was that somehow this person, or persons, figured out who we were and let someone know. It made me wish I had someone like Niemand to really get into the more protected parts of the Kozolezi main computer. Finally, the car pulled into the driveway of a small, single-story house set back from the road in a large field, which meant we could see anyone coming from the road. The nearly full second moon was coming up as the car stopped at the single-car garage. I got out and went to the door, which opened for me. Turning on the light, I walked into a basic furnished house. I pulled my pistol from my backpack, checked all the rooms, then went to the tiny kitchen. I was relieved to find a food printer with a decent menu, in addition to manual kitchen equipment. I picked a dinner at random, put my backpack on the counter, and pulled out my tablet, turning it on. There was one new message. To Marcus at Geneva Union Financial. From Anastasia. Have a nice dinner. We're going shopping. See you soon. I breathed a sigh of relief that they got the message. The printer chimed, and I rummaged around for utensils before I took my dinner from the slot. I sat at the table and started to reply to Anna's message when I realized that Joseph didn't know we were blown. Fuck, I said. How the hell did I never get his contact information? I thought. Shit. I sent another message to Anna. To Anastasia, from Marcus at Geneva Union Financial. I'm at the restaurant. Hope the shopping goes well. Oh, I forgot. Please let Joseph know I've gone to dinner so he doesn't worry. Thanks. Shit, I said out loud again. I ate quickly, barely tasting my dinner. There wasn't much I could do now but wait. You have been listening to Tales from Flat Space. If you want to support me in my writing, there are many ways to do it. Share this podcast, follow me on my Twitch channel, or buy my books. All you have to do is go to revcheetapon.net and click on the relevant links. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time.